My wife poisoned my family against me and took my daughter away, but years later, the truth finally came out. This is a story I never imagined I'd tell publicly, but after all that has happened, I need to get it off my chest. The previous several weeks have been nothing short of a roller coaster. Maybe someone out there can help me figure out if I'm really the terrible guy in all of this. I, 48 million, have experienced a tornado of emotions and experiences over the last decade, and it has all come to a climax in unexpected ways. It all began many years ago, when I married Laura, the mother of my daughter Emily. Laura and I were high school sweethearts, and at first, our bond appeared impenetrable. We were young, full of dreams, and eager to face the world together. But life has a way of tearing apart even the strongest relationships, and it wasn't long before the flaws in our relationship began to appear. Laura came from a wealthy family, accustomed to a life of luxury, whilst I grew up in a more modest home. Despite our disagreements, I loved her profoundly and did my best to provide for her in the way she was accustomed to. But no matter how hard I tried, it wasn't enough. The stress of attempting to meet Laura's expectations weighed heavily on me, and our marriage began to falter. Our relationship deteriorated, and we argued more frequently. I observed Laura appeared detached, as if her mind was elsewhere. I attempted to reach out to figure out what was wrong, but she continually dismissed me, stating that everything was okay. Only later, during the divorce proceedings, did I uncover the tragic reality. Laura had been unfaithful to me several times during our marriage. The revelation struck me like a ton of bricks. All those evenings I worked late to support our family, all the sacrifices I made to keep our marriage afloat, and she had been betraying me the entire time. Despite the grief and betrayal, my first priority was Emily, our daughter. She was just 11 years old at the time, and I wanted to do everything I could to be there for her. But that hope was dashed during the divorce settlement. Laura was determined to portray me as the villain in our story. She accused me of being emotionally distant and inattentive, and even hinted at possible abuse, all of which were false. But Laura was convincing, and she was able to turn my entire family against me, including my parents and siblings. They all believed her narrative and assumed that I had done something dreadful to push her to adultery. It seemed like I was stranded on an island, with no one willing to listen to me. The courtroom battle was ugly, and despite my best efforts, the judge sided with Laura. She was given full custody of Emily, while I was granted limited visitation rights. Laura destroyed even those few opportunities to visit my baby. She frequently forgot about scheduled visits, claiming Emily was unwell or had other commitments. I would volunteer to drive Emily to school or assist her with assignments, but Laura refused to let me play any significant role in her life. My family, who had always been close to Emily, supported Laura and helped her keep my daughter away from me. They were determined to remove me from Emily's life, and I was powerless to stop them. The years that followed were among the most agonizing of my life. It began subtly at first. Emily would be hesitant to visit me, preferring to stay with her mother. Even though it stung, I attempted to understand. After all, children frequently prefer one parent over the other, correct? However, it soon became evident that something more sinister was at work. Emily would come to our appointments with a laundry list of complaints, things I allegedly did or said that depicted me as the evil guy. I was perplexed since none of it was accurate. When I tried to talk to Laura about it, she dismissed my concerns or twisted the conversation to make it appear as if I was crazy or exaggerating. I tried for years to establish a relationship with Emily, but it got increasingly impossible. Phone calls remained unanswered, letters were returned unopened, and my attempts to visit her were met with animosity from Laura and my family. They all seemed intent on erasing me from Emily's life. The worst thing happened when Emily was around 13. She said bluntly that she didn't want to see me anymore. She spoke it with coldness, as if I meant nothing to her. I was devastated. I knew Laura had been telling Emily lies, but I didn't have the heart to drag her through a messy court battle. After all, she wanted to stay with her mother, and separating her from her mother would only exacerbate the situation. I didn't want to be the source of further trouble in her life, so I reluctantly decided to pull back. It was one of the most difficult decisions I'd ever made. I hoped that one day she'd grasp the truth and return to me, but that didn't happen for a long time. Years later, I gradually but steadily moved past that horrific moment in my life. I met Megan, and there was an instant connection between us. Because of my previous experiences, we took our time getting to know each other before getting married. Megan had 2 children of her own, so the majority of my time was spent with them, and we established a life together. While I adored my new family, there was always a part of me that wondered about Emily. How was she doing? What had she become? I contacted Laura several times over the years to inquire about Emily, but she never replied. I tried to convince myself that Emily was better off without me, but I couldn't get rid of the sense that I had abandoned her. Then, unexpectedly, Emily contacted me. She was 20 years old now, and her message was brief and straightforward. She wanted to meet and chat. She stated she needed to know more about our family, including why I wasn't there for her. My heart skipped a beat as I read her message. The prospect of seeing her after all this time made me nervous, but I was not going to pass up the opportunity to see my kid. I was scared but excited. Perhaps this was the moment I had been waiting for all these years. We planned to meet in a quiet cafe. I was nervous as I waited for her to arrive. When she eventually walked in, I barely recognized her. She had matured into a beautiful young woman, but the wrath and sadness in her eyes were undeniable. She had clearly been carrying a lot of anguish for quite some time. We sat across from each other, and the tension was evident. Emily didn't spend time getting to the subject. She needed answers. Answers I knew would be difficult to hear. I took a big breath and started telling her the truth. I did not hold back. I told her everything. How her mother and family had deliberately poisoned her against me, how they had twisted every scenario to make me look terrible, and how I had worked so hard to be a part of her life despite everything. I told her about Laura's infidelity and the lies she told during the divorce. I spent the next 3 hours laying out the facts of what had happened. I had brought up previous court records, text messages, and emails that corroborated my story. I wanted Emily to know that I understood what she had been taught about me over the years, and that I wasn't the monster she had been led to believe. Emily sat startled as I explained what had transpired. She grew up believing that I was the one who had abandoned her, that I didn't care enough to be a part of her life. She found it overwhelming to learn the truth. I could see she was absorbing everything, so I didn't press her to react. I knew that was a lot for her to take in. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. She questioned me why I never fought back, why I didn't do more to stay in her life. That question crushed me. I had to explain that I did not want to place her in the center of a court dispute and that I believed standing back was the best way to protect her. I wanted her to have a good upbringing, even if it meant she despised me for a while. But the truth was that I regretted not battling harder. I regretted allowing Laura and her family to control the story. Emily appeared to be gaining a better understanding of what had happened. She was outraged, partly at me, but largely at her mother. She couldn't believe Laura had gone to such efforts to make herself look like the better parent. Emily realized she had to take action. She stated that she wanted to confront her mother and lay everything out for everyone. I was astonished, but also proud of her for advocating for herself. Emily wasn't the young kid I knew a decade ago. She was a strong lady capable of self-defense. At the same time, I was concerned about the impact this would have on her. I breathed a sigh of relief when she said she wasn't sure how to go with our connection because she'd grown accustomed to having an absent father, but she'd love to meet and talk more. Laura bombarded me with angry phone calls and text messages 2 days later. Emily apparently challenged her with the information I shared. Laura was outraged, accusing me of turning Emily against her and ruining their friendship. I didn't expect Emily's next action. She called me yesterday to say she's going to take Laura to court for parental alienation. She intends to sue for the emotional harm caused by years of lies and manipulation. Laura still calls me constantly now. She is between demanding that I talk Emily out of the lawsuit and threatening. My family is also getting in touch, suddenly wanting to straighten things out and reconnect. I'm at a loss. One could say that Emily's at last knowing the truth relieves some guilt. Conversely, I never meant for things to get this far. Along with Emily, I also have Megan and her children to look for at this point in my life. I'm not sure whether I could manage the same mental strain once more. While Laura and my family should pay for their acts, I don't want to bring further suffering or trouble. I have been essentially torn. Emily deserves praise for searching the truth and for trying to speak out against the mistreatment she has suffered. But I also worry for her. The legal system is harsh, particularly in cases involving families, and I wanted her to suffer less than she already had. From a distance, I attempted to assist her so she could make her own decisions and let her know I was always available for her should she need me. The emotional strain Laura and my family are causing is not even something I can articulate. All of this makes me wonder if, despite this complex scenario, I did the right thing by telling my daughter the truth about her mother and our past. Your advice and views would be much valued. Update 1. Hey everyone, things have turned bad, which was rather natural. Any confrontation with Laura would not be simple since she shows no respect for anyone around her. I only knew that would also include our daughter. Emily came to our house after her argument with her mother. Her eyes were red from crying. She unleashed this time without restraint. She laid everything out, every agonizing aspect of her life for the past 8 years. Laura might have gained custody, but it was abundantly evident that she had no concept what it meant to be a mother, let alone look after a child. Emily related how Laura wasn't even home half of the time. She would be away, occasionally for days on end, leaving Emily to care for herself. Laura was intoxicated and erratic half of the time, when she was home. Emily talked of evenings when Laura would come home in a fury, throwing things, screaming, and occasionally even blaming Emily for her own mistakes and discontent. As she related these events, the loneliness, the anxiety she must have experienced, my heart broke. Still to come, though, was the worst. Emily related to us two occurrences that still tormented her. She was 13 years old at first. Laura had departed without food or money, alone for the weekend. Emily burned her hand quite severely while trying to prepare something for herself. She was in great agony, but when she tried phoning Laura, she did not answer. Just a child, Emily had to go to the closest hospital with her hand covered in a towel. Alone, terrified, in pain, she waited hours in the ER before a nurse at last spotted her and attended to her. Emily showed me the scar on her palm, a continual reminder of her mother's negligence. Still worse was the second episode. Laura had been on a drinking frenzy for weeks. She was 15. Emily made every effort to avoid her mother, until one evening Laura became aggressive. In a flash of wrath, she flung a glass at Emily that broke against her leg severely. Emily was in shock and bleeding. Instead of tending to her, Laura yelled at her to tidy the mess. Terrified, Emily covered her leg in an old shirt and headed once more toward the hospital. She wound up needing sutures there. I had a range of emotions as Emily related these tales: sorrow for all the suffering Emily had gone through, and fury at Laura for sending our daughter through this dream. It was not something I had felt in years. She was young and not deserving of any of this. She did not deserve to be left terrified, injured and alone. The one person meant to be defending her ought not to treat her like a burden. This was unmistakable physical and psychological assault. It seemed ironic that Laura's daily routines included the very things she had accused me of dragging Emily away from. Laura should have simply let me look after Emily to prevent all of this. Emily may have had a normal, contented life if she hadn't been so enthralled with her own selfishness and spite. The entire evening Megan and I listened to Emily. We checked to see she felt at ease and understood she was safe now. Megan specifically consoled Emily by holding her hand and telling her none of this was her fault. Having someone console Emily, tell her she was loved and that she mattered, seemed so important to her. Then Emily apologized to me in a moment that was both sad and contradictory. She had nothing to repent of, hence she didn't need to? But she did. She admitted she pushed me away, she was sorry for believing all the lies her mother had taught her, and she should have seen the reality sooner. Her voice faltered as she informed me she had missed me so much over these years and had frequently wondered what life would have been like if she had lived with me instead. I told her how much I had missed her too, how I had never stopped thinking about her, how I had never stopped loving her, and that she did not need to apologize for anything as Laura's games merely served as a victim's stage. That was a mixed feeling. Hearing her apologies hurt, but it also meant that we were at last re-establishing our relationship following all these years apart. I also came to see that I was done running from family strife and playing it safe. Though it meant facing legal conflict with my ex-wife, my daughter's well-being was at risk and I was determined to receive the apology and reparations she deserved. After a restless night of consoling and chatting, Emily and I hatched a strategy early the next morning. We were going to face my family about everything. Every lie, every act of neglect, everything Emily had gone through. I was done with them acting as though they were the ideal family while Laura had helped Emily to ruin her early years. The medical records, text messages, and even some old Laura voicemails Emily had preserved provided the evidence we needed. It was time to tell them just exactly what their complicity had cost. It was time to reveal the truth. Emily seemed anxious, but I could also detect a resolution in her eyes not previously seen. I was going to be right there beside her. She was ready to meet them and defend herself. At last, we would be getting the justice we both deserved, and I knew that whatever happened would be shared by us. Whatever transpires, you folks will be the first to know. It means a lot to have you understand my circumstances and provide constructive remarks. This is absolutely not the end, hence I will come returning with updates. Update 2. Hi everybody, hope everyone is doing fantastic? Think back to the family confrontation Emily and I had scheduled. Well, it happened and it was most certainly memorable. I agreed to pay a surprise visit together with my daughter. I saw the amazement on their faces as soon as we entered the door. They seemed unable to really handle seeing us together, united after all these years. They had never imagined that the years of isolation, manipulation, and deceit could be quickly reversed. Here we were nevertheless, poised side by side ready to face them. The first shock passed swiftly, and they hurried to present their customary worried front. The first person to talk was my mother, whose voice was tinged with phony anxiety as she asked Emily whether I had offended her or harmed her. The implication stung, not because I cared what others thought of Laura, but rather because it demonstrated how firmly they had embraced her story. Though it was a horrible idea, one they appeared to hold without doubt was that I would hurt my own daughter. Perhaps because it would help them to defend their own behavior, they were fast to accept the worst of me. But Emily was no more the terrified, bewildered child Laura knew, and I was not Laura. Emily stepped forward before I could answer. Her voice was firm, full of a quiet strength that made me proud. She urged them to abandon the act, to stop acting as though they cared when throughout the years they had done nothing to support her. Her statements were neither wavering or hesitant. She called them out for their indifference, for standing by while Laura ignored and mistreated her, and for helping to bring about the ruin of her early years. I observed as my siblings and parents struggled to hide their uneasiness. Their looks changed from pretended concern to something more like irritation. They disliked being challenged, particularly not by Emily, who they still considered as a child, someone who ought to be appreciative of whatever sloppiness of attention they had given her. But Emily was no child anymore, and she showed no interest in their empty apologies or explanations. Some of you have inquired how Laura simply set my own family against me. Our relationship has always been complex, underlying animosity and years of unresolved problems entangling it. My siblings and I had never been close. There was always a sense of one-upmanship, of competitiveness, that corroded any possibility of a real bond. Rather than encouraging harmony, my parents had sided with whichever child would have the greatest benefit for them at the time. Laura came to them intending to divorce me, and they saw it as a chance to vent their residual animosity at me. They had not given Emily or me any thought about how it would affect us. Their interests were more in seeing me pushed down a peg than in clearing past records. Emily gave out everything that had happened. How Laura had deserted her, how she had experienced trauma and injuries while they turned a blind eye, and I could see the anxiety rising on their faces. Particularly not by someone they had undervalued for so long, they were not used to being questioned in this manner. It was not only the words that stung, it was Emily's holding of them responsible, refusing to let their typical platitudes absolve them. Of course, we withheld some of what we had. Showing all of our cards at once was not necessary. We had text messages, hospital records, and other data readily able to undermine their well-crafted story. For now, though, we kept most of it under wraps, simply showing enough to make it abundantly evident we were serious. This was a warning, a proclamation that we were done following their guidelines and that things were going to get far more serious, not only some emotional outburst. We fled the house not waiting for any reply. Nothing they could say would make any difference, nothing that would undo the years of suffering and neglect they had let to occur. Emily said one last farewell as we turned away. She advised them to forward it to Laura, therefore alerting her that we were arriving with a somewhat heavy case and she should be ready for it. Although the silence that followed us as we departed was oppressive, it was a silence loaded with unspoken words, the weight of what was to come. Emily and I had marked our line on the sand. There was no turning back. The family has always prospered on separation, on keeping us apart and at conflict with one another. But now, Emily and me standing together, they were the ones who would have to deal with the fallout. I want you to know that I am always reading over each and every comment. All of you have given me some of the best advice. Your help is quite valuable. Update 3. Hello, I want to thank everyone who has supported and advised me based on this narrative. Though I believe we are at last seeing a way forward, the previous few days have been some of the most difficult of my life. So strap up for a long one. I got in touch with one of our lawyers right away following the event at my family's house. Not just to me but also to Emily. I was not ready to let Laura get away with all she had done. Emily startled me nevertheless when I mentioned considering legal action. She wanted no more legalities moving ahead. Far from contrary, it was not that she lacked empathy or that she was forgiving her mother. Emily had different responsibilities now and had lately gone through a lot. She had great ideas for her future and her academic life was vibrant. She could not afford to pause to sue her mother and handle a court dispute. As her dad, I was really proud of her. She was still a brilliant, tenacious young woman with enormous professional possibilities ahead of her after all she had gone through. I did, however, also find myself torn. Part of me wanted Laura to suffer for her deeds, to pay for the suffering she had brought about. One thing I did wrong was ruin my life. Nevertheless, I found unforgivable damage done to Emily, that of robbing her of a normal, happy childhood. I did, however, honor Emily's desires. Unlike her mother's, her view counted here, and it was something I would constantly keep in mind while deciding what to do. Another thing occurred when we were negotiating all of this. 2 days later, Laura's neighbor walked up to our door bearing an envelope. The neighbor said Laura had asked her to bring the mail to us as she was temporarily leaving town. Though I had no idea what to expect, I accepted the envelope and thanked the neighbor. Within the envelope, Laura had a note. Long and full of apologies and explanations, it sought to defend her behavior. She talked about losing her job, how she grew quite alone when I left, and how events descended from there. She finally landed another job, but it paid little, and she descended into more misery. Drinking became her coping mechanism. She said she never intended to hurt Emily, that she was simply so lost and overwhelmed by her own suffering. Laura continued to go into great detail about more of her challenges, seeking to depict a lady driven to the brink by events beyond her reach. But reading made me focus only on how hollow everything sounded. Laura was obviously trying to justify her actions and project an impression of victimization from her own experiences. But no degree of difficulty could excuse her treatment of Emily. She begged us not to go to legal war at the end of the letter. As a show of kindness, she pledged to avoid Emily. She also offered to pay whatever we felt was appropriate as reparations for the damage she had done. Emily's eyes showed grief as soon as I turned over the letter to her. She had not sought this apology, and it most definitely was not the resolution she was due. What kind of mother leaves her child like this and subsequently believes that money could possibly offset all the years of suffering and neglect? For Emily, it was a terrible insight. I knew she needed time to get through it. Emily needed space, as she would reach out to Megan or me when she was ready. For Emily, someone she could confide in without judgment, my wife Megan had become fast a comfort. Soon Emily became like family to all of us, developing a close relationship with Megan's kids. Although I wanted to assist, I knew Emily would gain more from Megan's support and viewpoint to help her to organize everything. Eventually Emily came to me with her choice. She refused to go after a legal lawsuit. She wanted not to drag things out anymore or become mired in a nasty court struggle. Freed from the shadows of the past, she wanted to start anew and concentrate on her and her future. Emily was ready to go on, and I knew this was the right decision even if I wanted justice for her. She had lived under the weight of her mother's errors for sufficient time. She was ready to live her life on her terms. Emily's choice sent us into a fresh chapter. She began concentrating more on her academics, directing her efforts toward her objectives and dreams. As Megan negotiated this new stage of her life, Megan and I kept helping her in all possible respects, providing direction and encouragement. Regarding myself, this seems like a dream. Things cannot have concluded on a better note. I have 3 children and an incredible wife at my side. Though the trip had been protracted and agonizing, at last we had returned to one another. More than all, that was the real success in all of this. Once more, I appreciate all of your support. Though it's been an incredible journey, I believe we are at last headed toward recovery. After discovering my brother's wedding was fake and being excluded, our once close bond is shattered, leaving me heartbroken. Me, 30F, and my brother, 31M, have always been as close as twins. Our closeness is a foundation in our family. One of the true consistent relationships. Obviously not in a weird way. When we fight, which is never or small fights, the whole family feels it and tries to fix it because of how unnatural it feels for everyone. He gave me away at my wedding. I named a child after him. We have matching tattoos. We talk on the phone almost every day. He started planning his wedding. He asked me to be a groomsman, while his friend, 35-ish F, would be his best man. Everyone thought this was odd because of his role at my wedding, and none of us really know/have met his friend. I expressed how it hurt my feelings and was met with, "My wedding isn't about you, okay? Fine, I'll do what you ask." During the planning he called me every day. We sent ideas. I helped with making stuff. I didn't mind. I decided early on to not focus on titles but just to make this day as amazing as possible for my brother. He asked me to be a flower fairy, because this was a gay child-free wedding. I agreed. During the process of dress, shoe picking, him and the best man would shoot down all of my ideas. She would send very basic heels that were around $100. Heck no. I told her my budget was $45 for shoes, especially for plain gold heels. The wedding party all had a very mean girl mentality. I felt it from day one. There was the wedding party, and then me. I chalk this up to not really knowing them well and proximity. All of them live in a different state than me. They even went as far as saying the shoes I like were too slutty. They were the type of small heels that place up around your calf or around your ankle. After this I begged to come as a guest. So I could wear what I want and not feel this weird mean girl mod mentality from the rest of the wedding group. My brother says, "No way, I can't get married without you being by my side. I get to the state the wedding will be, and the first day I'm there I find out the best man had the bachelor party the night before I got there. Everyone from the wedding party was included aside from me. I let it go and focus on the wedding and doing my part. So, I slap on some wings, dance my way down the aisle and give my very first wedding speech. All goes well. The wedding was awesome until the drag show. Yes, they had a drag show at their wedding. During the show one of the queens comes on and basically announces that this was all fake because my brother and his partner had gotten married 1 year prior. I turned to the rest of the wedding party and asked, did they know? They did. They were at the real wedding. Everyone but me. I'm sitting there trying to process, and my mom, who gave them $3,000 for the wedding because they needed it, storms up to ask if I knew. I told her no, and she immediately switched to being supportive to me because of how bad the situation was. It's not about them already being married. They can do what they want. I myself spent over $4,000 on this wedding. Because I was coming from out of state I had to get a plane ticket. I paid for a week at an Airbnb. One night most of the wedding party stayed at the house I rented because they didn't have anywhere else to stay, and did not even offer to pay for any of it. The dress for the wedding. The fairy wings I handmade. All of it. I spent too much time and money on this wedding. But then I start to remember all of the lies. They got married. And 3 days after my brother was at my house while I gave birth to my last child because I always wanted him to be a part of my huge moments. He held my newborn, knowing he had just gotten married, and said nothing. They gaslight me saying I was crazy feeling left out. Him saying he can't get married without me. Lying to my face every single day for a year. Just, all of it. After realizing all of this I tried to leave without making any sense. His husband mockingly asked me if I was mad. I said I'd talk to them another day and they should enjoy their night. I was able to leave without anyone else at the wedding knowing I was upset. Before I could leave the happy couple pulls me into a room. My brother is crying saying he didn't do this to hurt me. I keep it together. Say enjoy your night and we will talk another day. His husband says, oh, so there is something to talk about then. I repeat, we can talk another day. They ask me to brunch. I say I'll see if I'm up, ready for it when they go. The next morning I realize the whole wedding party and some guests are going to lunch. I choose not to go because I am not going to put myself in a situation where I am ganged up on again over my feelings about the wedding and wedding party. After that I left the wedding chat on Snap, which they were notified of. At this point it's the next morning and his husband starts blowing me and my friend, who was with me, up. We ignore and go about our day. I have not looked at or spoken to my brother since. Aside from short responses to get me to the airport the day I left. When I left I asked them to crop me out of the wedding photos as I didn't want to be associated with a fake wedding and I didn't want a reminder of how embarrassing it was and how stupid I looked. I told them I didn't want to speak to them again. My brother says nothing and his husband says you're a narcissist and I feel bad for the people who have to deal with you. Pretty sure narcissistic more aligns with tricking 100 people into coming to a wedding, some of the wedding that was paid for by other people. Just to tell everyone haha this was just a giant party for us. Joke's on you is probably more narcissistic than me reacting to the time, money, energy spent to attend a fake wedding. But, alright, lol, I just don't know where to go from here. I have them both blocked. There is a line in our family. My brother has not tried to fix it. He has the chance to show me what I meant to him. He did. And now I have to believe him. I'm going to try to update in sections. 1. I guess to answer if he is in an abusive relationship that really is up to each person to decide. I will not, and won't label him as abusive because I'm not in that relationship with them. My mentioning of the drag queens was because they are a part of the story. Hello, it was one of the queens that made the announcement. I'm not sure why some of you are taking that as me being anything phobic. Mentioning that somebody is gay, or that drag queens attended a wedding is a part of a story and it's factual. It's not anything phobic. Our family, as well as the new husband's family, have always been nothing but supportive and accepting. My mom has 2 kids who are very hurt. She could never hate my brother, but she definitely does not like the decisions that he has been making. She is doing her best to support her 2 children. Gay wedding. No kids allowed? 2 separate statements, lol. They definitely did not ban gay children from their wedding. LOL. I mentioned both of these things to explain why I was a flower fairy. No kids, flower girl. Fairy to go along with the gay dragon theme. Hello people. I proudly slap those wings on and dance my way down the aisle. That is definitely not anything phobic, lol. For those of you who are saying anything along those lines, you are definitely reaching and projecting. Using narcissistic when it actually does not apply to the person, in my opinion, is trying to weaponize more info in the comments. Top questions. For some reason, I cannot edit my post to add this, so hopefully most of you will see it. Me and my new husband, as far as I know, did not have any hard feelings going into the wedding. There was a time when they were dating that I expressed I didn't like the fact that my brother was working 2 jobs for a new husband to try to become a music producer. I watched my brother kill himself for years to try to support both of them while he sat around smoking weed in his studio, and ever since then new husband decided that I hate him, even though we have since squashed all of those issues when he got a job and started contributing. Even when we did not get along, I always made it very clear, if my brother loves you and I love you too. Both families have been very supportive. There's no homophobia or anything like that on either side. Is my brother in an abusive relationship? I don't know, I guess that's what each individual person would consider abusive. I don't want to label my brother's partner unfairly as abusive when I'm not in a relationship myself and my brother has never expressed feeling abused. I think if you consider this behavior manipulative and abusive, then that's up to your own discretion. However, I am not going to give anyone that label. I didn't decide this was a fake wedding. They did when they decided to announce in the middle of the ceremony that they were already married. They made it a fake wedding when they announced that it was fake. LOL. Hello. Russian bots, pushing propaganda. Okay people, I only mentioned the fact that there was a drag show at the wedding because that is a very uncommon thing. I found out that my brother had been married for a year and had been lying to my face via drag queen announcements. That is just stating the facts. That has absolutely nothing to do with the drag community, or how myself, or anybody else should feel about them. They were paid to do a job and they showed up and did what they were paid to do. I have no ill will towards anybody in any type of community. Those of you who are saying to me, mentioning them comes off as judgmental. For those of you who think it's weird that I did not mention that he was gay. Why is that weird? And why is that relevant to the story? LOL. The people who had their panties in a wad probably have more of an issue with the community than I do. Stop making this post about anything other than what it is about. At the end of the day, I am mourning the loss of my brother. I am mourning the relationship that I thought him and I had. And to be honest, based off of my perspective of our closeness, I am honestly questioning my own sanity. Do you generally spend hours talking to somebody, getting matching tattoos, planning a wedding, being at holidays and childbirth with somebody that you're not close with? At least on my end, I did not make up how close I was with my brother if it was not reciprocated, and he is a very good actor. And honestly, me questioning our closeness has been the most hurtful part about this entire experience. It's made me question if I'm crazy or not. Gay wedding, child-free, 2 separate statements. It was not a wedding where they did not invite gay kids. LOL. For anyone who reads it like that, you're extra weird. My brother is obviously gay and got married to a man. Therefore, it is a gay wedding. Children were not allowed to attend the wedding, therefore a child-free. 2 separate things, people. Both are okay. And I also want to say that I would never have slapped fairy wings on my back and danced down the aisle if I was not 100% supportive of them. Please stop trying to make this an issue other than 2 siblings having a falling out. Another comment. Okay, I feel like you are very much twisting the story. LOL. I did not make sure everyone knew I was leaving the wedding. I actually left very discreetly at almost midnight when the wedding was ending at 1 a.m. I did not make my brother cry. His husband kept trying to force a conversation that I asked respectfully multiple times to not have the night of the wedding so that way it would not ruin their day. I showed up in every single thing my brother asked of me. I took the bullying, and it kept my mouth shut for most of it after I was accused of trying to make the wedding about me. From that point on, I went out of my way to do everything I could to make his day as special as I could for him. Comment about her husband. Brother tried to contact my husband to ask how to pay back what I spent to come to the wedding. My husband said that he was not going to get involved. Brother tried to convince my husband that I was overreacting. My husband told brother that is absolutely not true and I have every right to be upset, and what he did was bonkers. My husband very much has been supportive, but also is very sad to see me and my brother fighting like this. Update 1, I'm going to do my best to put as much information as I can, but it ends up really long and Reddit will not let me post. So I'm going to try to answer all of the questions and I'm going to paraphrase a lot. The update is, there is no update. Things are the same, they are still blocked. One suggestion was that I should write him a letter, which I actually did the day after this happened, and I left it in his room. I laid out all of my feelings and described them in detail. How hurt I was. We had a 2-hour drive where he said absolutely nothing even after reading my letter. I did end up losing all of my manners when I landed, and my husband informed me that he sent him a message basically saying that I was overreacting. I said a lot of things that I was not very proud of. At the end of the day, I stand by my truth, and I stand by my perspective of what happened. Please stop trying to make this a phobia issue. Both families have been nothing but supportive. They represent themselves, not an entire group of people. Stop being so simple-minded. The mention of drag queens was only there because one of the queens announced that they had gotten married a year ago. Plus, how many times do you see a drag show at a wedding? If you read some imaginary undertone, that is definitely a you issue. Moving on. New husband, in my opinion, is not somebody that I would label as abusive. However, abuse is subjective. I think this more falls down to him being very emotionally immature. I am not a yes man. I was for the wedding. That's an appropriate time to be a yes man. Outside of that, new husband has always been intimidated by my opinion. I think he knows I can see through his BS. Weak men hate strong women. That's a fact. And that's the case here. However, we did not have any type of beef on the wedding day. Or for years before. I made it clear that if my brother loves you and wants to spend his life with you, then I support that. My mom is trying her best to be as supportive as she can to both of her kids. She could never hate my brother, although she absolutely hates what he did. As far as I go, I don't know who I am without my brother. He was just as important to me as my children and my husband. It was always me and him. To say that I am mourning is an understatement. This whole situation has made me question a 30-year relationship. Realizing his capability to live a double life that I'm not a part of has rocked to my entire world in my entire sense of reality. I'm not okay. I'm going to spend the next year being no contact. I'm going to go to therapy and get my mind, body and soul in the best place possible, while pushing as much good karma into the world as I can. Maybe then I will be able to decide if I want to close that door fully and permanently, or if I'm at a place where I'm willing to create a new normal with him. At the end of the day, I am absolutely devastated and heartbroken. I also want to address frequently asked things. 1. Baby was no fear of being overshadowed. The date that they got married was because it was a dating anniversary for them, nothing to do with me or my pregnancy. 2. I am aware that people get married and have a large ceremony later. That's okay. It's not what they did, it's how they did it. 3. I am not a Russian bot trying to push propaganda, lol. Those comments did make me laugh though. 4. If I had the answer to why they would feel comfortable doing this to me, then I guess I wouldn't be as dumbfounded as I am. I'm not leaving out any type of detail. Honestly, it would be a lot easier if I did something so horrible to deserve this, because then I wouldn't have to wonder why. I'd know. At the end of the day, I'm not okay. I don't know if there's anything he could do to fix this. I'll always wonder if he's telling me the truth or what he's hiding. After the way that his husband spoke to me, and after him allowing him to do that, I'm honestly so disgusted with both of them. I deleted the original post because I didn't want them to be attacked. Sadly, I still have a need to try to protect him. I don't know you guys. The brother-in-law appeared and made a comments in the original post. Brother-in-law here. I'll just start by saying, for one, having a big wedding ceremony 1 year later was not my idea, but once we decided that we were going to do it, we consulted many times about telling people beforehand for fear of things like this happening. I've never had a great relationship with Op, but we've tried to make things work mostly for my husband, her brother, because I knew they were very close and I wasn't too fond of her due to our interactions in the past. I know how important those close relationships are and would never wish to tear that apart. Op didn't want to talk about it at all. We tried to apologize and explain that the intention was never for any humiliation or insult to anyone at all. But she wouldn't have any conversation about it, especially the night of. The next day at the Airbnb, I tried to open a dialogue with Op about how she was feeling, and she only responded with snark and comments about how there's nothing to talk about. That's the small conversation where the "so there is something to talk about" statement was said by me. I eventually let it be and left the room. Everything that was said by her didn't help me or anyone understand really how she felt about it, and the little she did say seemed very self-centered and about how this was a plan to humiliate her specifically, which it most definitely was not. Reading through this now though, I do understand a bit more why she felt that way. And for that I truly am sorry. Anyway, I'm not entirely sure how these work or if there's a proper way to post this, but ask me anything, Ig. Reply. All I'm going to say is, you both are married now and you made your choice. You both are a partnership. You both collectively decided to do this and decided it was a good idea, and the consequences are, I want nothing to do with either one of you ever again. That's it. There is no reason or purpose to keep having an open dialogue about this because it's done. And you starting out your post with "you don't like me" pretty much confirmed everything that I said. I wish you and him nothing but happiness, but this conversation is over. I've heard your side of things and it still isn't good enough to justify what you both did. And I'm choosing to walk away from both of you. Another reply he admits in the text above he knew. He literally says we didn't want to tell people because they were there and happy. He knew what he was doing. It was a huge manipulation. Lying to people to get what you want is manipulation. Omitting things from people to not give them the power to make a fair choice is also very much manipulation. They knew what they were doing. In the sentence the other people said, brother doesn't value sister the same way. That's it. That's the end of the argument. They both showed me exactly what I meant to them. The motivation behind it is not really important anymore. Maybe this was just a total oversight and a mistake, but regardless, the result was the same. And the consequence remains the same. I want nothing to do with y'all. I wish you happiness because I will always love you. If you make him happy then I am so happy for the both of you. Truly I am. Our relationship was the sacrifice for this day and you both decided to make it. I reacted to it and was trying to sort through my feelings by posting on this podcast. I did not expect for it to go viral, so for that I'm sorry. I did try to remove the post, but it was too late. I realize that you don't like me due to past interactions. And that's fine. So what I'm about to say won't matter. My heart is completely shattered. I'm literally going through a mourning process like someone died. Because that night the relationship N and I did die. He has always been my person. He isn't now, and I've never felt more alone. I honestly don't know if I'm going to be okay. Both of your responses just confirm everything I said and everything I felt. You have your side, I have mine. But ultimately everyone is feeling the loss of me and N. This changes everything in the family. I'm going to continue to root for both of you. Always. But I am going to do it from my side of the world. In an emergency either of you can call me and I'll be there. But outside of that, I am good with both of you. You don't like me, I'm out of your life now. You don't get to defer to Neva when it comes to me but want to orchestrate our conversation after he did what he did. You are not a safe place for me. Just like I'm sure you feel like I'm not either. You win. Go be with N. Go have a happy life. Update 2. If you're reading this you're here because you're super invested in my family's tea, lol. But really, I'm okay, I'm going to be okay or maybe I won't. Either way I am going to keep moving forward and if you want to come along with me, you can follow me on TikTok. I'm not trying to be an influencer. I'm just going to use it as a diary, / coping, safe space. My name on there is Tukari, 29. New update. I wish I could be writing that my brother had begged for my forgiveness. Those things somehow managed to go back to how they were. But they haven't. Nothing with my situation has changed. The only thing they truly changed was my perception of someone I thought I knew. I know a lot of people can't understand because you're not close with a sibling. But this has been like a true death for me. And sometimes my grief is so big I don't know what to do with it. He hasn't reached out, he hasn't explained. He hasn't even cared if I'm being fully honest, and what a mindfuck that has been. To go from someone being as important to you as your husband and children, to them showing you over and over how little you do, and ever did mean to them. He has doubled down on the I didn't do anything wrong and you're overreacting. Which is honestly just the biggest slap in the face. If someone can't admit they did something wrong, then they will never actually be sorry and the chances of behavior repeating itself are sky high. A lot of you pointed out our relationship might have only been this important to me, and I think you all were right. For a long time I cried every day. I cried during the times we would normally talk on the phone, or when a song reminded me of him. And sometimes I've cried for no reason at all other than just feeling like there is a hole in me now. But I find myself crying less and less. And sometimes when I think of him, my first thought that follows will be wow, it's been days since he has even crossed my mind. And I guess that's progress, right? I'm not crying every day anymore. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't still shedding tears. Tears he doesn't deserve, but they come anyway. Because that's the thing about unconditional love. It still exists even when the other person broke your heart. It doesn't go away. But sometimes the other person can just no longer have access to the unconditional anymore. We have spoken. Briefly. Over the phone during the holidays to deal with a family emergency involving another family member. It was pretty much all business. Everyone around us kept saying, I'm so glad you guys are talking again. But we weren't talking again. We were just dealing with business. And I guess that's all the talking we will ever do again. At one point my husband chimed into our phone conversation and told him how much he misses him too, and he cried. I guess I forgot I wasn't the only one losing someone, but either way that doesn't change anything. My kids have not even noticed. He did try to send Christmas gifts to them through my mom, but only because I said something about him not acknowledging my son on his birthday. So is that all he'll ever be? Impersonal generic gifts that my kids get once a year? I told my mom to send them back and that they don't need a gift uncle. Honestly, they have enough of those on my husband's side. With that, I also came to the realization that if you don't have a good, respectful relationship with me, you absolutely do not get access to my children. And to be fully honest, he never really took that much interest in my kids anyway. I know he cares and loves them, but as far as a personal one-on-one relationship with them, let's just say the extent of how much he got to know them was always me telling him about them. So there really wasn't a deep pre-established relationship with any of my kids and him. And with him not being on good terms with me, or my husband, I'm not going to allow him access to my children. And I would honestly feel the same way and react to anyone this way. If someone shows you over and over again that they do not love and respect you, why would you allow them access to your kids? Especially if all they are is a gift once a year. I'm not healed. But I'm on my way. It's not better, but it's getting better. I feel I am suffering the consequences of someone else's actions. I was spiraling, but I am finding my new normal. I'll update again at the 1-year mark.